Hi guys, welcome to the channel. We are continuing the EQ course, and today we are going to talk about kick and bass. And kick and bass are indeed the most important thing in electronic dance music. So if you want your tracks to be successful, you really need to work in your kick and bass. Unfortunately, if you were looking for some good tips and advice in this video, you'll get answers to your questions, I hope, because I want to bring some value and useful information to you. So we are going to work on the track which I'm currently making, and I'm going to show you guys how I EQ my kick and bass, what plugins do I use, and what concepts might be very helpful for you. And before we start, I want to talk about two things. If your kick is very low, you need to make your bass a little bit higher because they won't take the same frequencies, and that will really help you to mix. So the mixing process will be easier, and the same applies to the bass. So if your bass is very low, your kick needs to be a little bit higher. And the number two thing you have to remember is the right kick. So my advice would be to make your own kick. We'll do that. I'm going to show you the plugin I use for making my own kick. There are actually a couple of ways you could do your own kick, but we are going to focus only on the one I think is best. Yeah, so it's a very nice and subby deep bass line. And let's have a look at the kick. So I'm using a plugin called Kick 2 by Sonic Academy. As you can see, I have a lot of points here, and you could try and tweak your kick drum in the plugin. It's very easy. My general advice here would be try to use either fifths or octaves. So as you see, let's actually try and make this in C. I have my kick, the lowest point in C, then I have C again, I have F, which is fifth, then I have F, which is fifth, and I have C again, G, fifth, F, fifth, another F, and one last C. And in the amp, it's kind of simple, just a basic kick. You could try and tweak it here with those points. It changes the shape of your kick. I'm going to leave it as it is. And also you need to pay attention to the length of your kick. So if you make your kick too long, it will clash with the bass. The mix is going to be very muddy, and we obviously don't want that. Okay, the next thing I would recommend doing is try to cut the low mid and the mid frequencies. Let's have a listen without the EQ how the kick and bass sound together, and now with EQ. We've still got that nice and subby punch, but at the same time we cut that, boxy kind of sound, and that is possible because we are cutting the 1K range and 200 Hz. Actually, let's try and cut 300 because it's where usually the bass is. It sounds so much better, and in some cases you can try and cut 200, in some cases 300 works best. So yeah, we are pretty much done with the kick. Inside the plugin, I'm also going to use a separate EQ on the channel just to make sure the kick sounds really clean. And for that purpose, I'm going to use a plugin called Prime EQ by Voxengo, which is a really nice equalizer. I've been using it like for a couple of days, and in my opinion it's very clean, transparent, and sounds like almost linear phase EQ. So I didn't find, like any phase cancellations or stuff like that. And yeah, about the phase cancellation, before we start mixing, we need to make sure that the kick and bass have the same phase. So I've switched the phase upside down. Yeah, and as you might hear, the kick now sounds much cleaner together with the bass. And that's what we need, exactly what we need. And without the so much better. So let's try and EQ our kick, and I'm going to cut the same 300 Hertz. We could also try and maybe cut around 500, but I'm just going to use 1K and 300 just to cut the middle. Yeah, so we've got so much more space for our bass harmonics, and we could try to cut maybe higher frequencies and see how that sounds. So maybe up to 4K, or we could try to boost this, but I think it's better to use a separate click for the bass drum. Actually, that sounds nice. Maybe like when I boost upper frequencies, it gives more presence to the kick, and you could try and do that, or you could use a separate click. I think I want to cut the higher frequencies, so the 4K I'm going to cut by 2 and 2. And around 100 we have that punch, but the thing is, I'm not going to boost frequencies with this EQ. I'm instead going to use an analog emulation. You can use Pultec, which is a great equalizer. So let's just have a listen so you guys understand what this frequency really gives to the kick. So we could try and leave that as it is. Cut that just a little. So that is the basic EQ settings for our kick. So let's move to the bass, and I'm going to use an EQ before the sidechain. The reason I've switched to this EQ instead of using FOP Filter Pro Q3 is that it doesn't give latency, and it also gives almost like a linear phase sound. At least to me it sounds like that. It's very clean, it doesn't introduce any latency, and you could put your sidechain plugin at the end of the chain, which is really good, because I've used to put the sidechain before the EQ because of the latency. Oh yeah, I think I forgot to cut the low end for our kick. Now, so usually for the kick I would recommend cutting around 40 Hertz. We don't really need more than that. Yeah, so we've cut the sub, the very low frequencies, so they don't clash with the bass. And now what we are going to do, we are going to EQ the bass. So I'm going to cut the low end around 30 Hertz. For the bass we need a little bit more. And what you could do, you could try and cut the 200 just to give more space to your kick. And to see which sounds better, we could try and use the filter on our master channel. Yeah, so the kick and bass definitely sound good at the current stage, but I think we could improve it a little. So we could try and cut either 2 or 300 on our kick. So yeah, I think 200 sounds cleaner. Yeah, so the 500 we don't really need in our kick. I just want to keep that subby low and the higher frequencies. We could try and cut maybe till 300 so we don't have to EQ the bass too much. And what we could do, we could try and cut at 200 to make it even more cleaner. Maybe like that. Yeah, sounds good. And maybe cut 100 just to make sure. I'm not sure if that will sound good, but we might get a little bit more space for our kick. Yeah, this is definitely sounding much more accurate. Yeah, so that is my suggestion how I would EQ my kick and bass. The next step we could do is that we could use an equalizer on the group channel to basically glue our kick and bass even more. Yeah, be very careful guys on the groups when you are EQing your stuff, because you could easily ruin your instruments. Always compare how your instruments, like kick and bass, drums, how this sounds in the mix, in the context. So in the context, if that sounds better, that means that you made the right decision, and you should always thinking in that way. The instruments, they should not sound like perfect when you solo the track. Instead, they should sound together good in the mix. And as soon as you understand that, you'll improve your mixing, believe me. Let's have a listen together with the drums. Or we could try the 500. Yeah, I think 500 sounds best, since we EQ'd the 2 and 300 on the bass and on the kick. I don't really want to cut that now, but let me try this when I work with the instruments. When we are cutting the higher frequencies, we have a deeper kind of sound. So if you want more presence, try to boost that region. And if you want the deeper sound, so you should cut. Yeah, I think this sounds nicer. Let's have a short summary. For the kick, the most important parts in the EQ. So the punch, which is around 60 Hz, the 100 and 200, you should be very careful, because that might give you that boxy, unpleasant sound, and usually 2 and 300 are the frequencies, like the muddy frequencies, so you could in many cases cut there. And if you want like a subby and deep kick, you should also consider cutting the middle range, say like 500 and 1K. And you can also try and boost the higher frequencies, so you have like a contrast between the sub and like the middle which you've cut. It creates that contrast which makes your kick sound deep, subby, and with that nice click. Always make sure that the kick sounds good, that you have a right sample, or you create a unique kick inside the plugin I've shown you. And for the bass, in this case we are working with a really like deep and subby bass, but usually 2 and 300 is the frequency range which stands for the bass on the smaller speakers. So on the monitors, in the headphones, you could hear below 200, even 100, so you could really hear those nice subby frequencies. But to make sure that your bass sounds good, you need to work with 200 and 300 hertz. And also in some cases, you could try and boost 1K, boost 500, so your bass has more presence. And on the groups, it just basically pushes your kick and bass deeper in the mix, in my opinion. So you should not cut like very much on the groups, whether it's bass or drums, synthesizers. Always try to cut as less as you can. So it's much better to work with gain staging and have a bright loudness instead of just destroying your sounds with an equalizer. It should also be like very gentle, very soft, just to balance your sounds. So I think that was all for today. I hope that you guys found some value in this video, that you found some useful tips. And if you did, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like and bell button, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.